Hello, friendos! Welcome back to another exciting episode of Frosty Talks. So, we need to have a talk about Star Wars. Oh boy, Star Wars. So, for years, since, The Force Awakens, we've been. I've been quiet about my likes and dislikes with Star Wars. And the reason being is because, number one, nobody wants to hear just negative stuff about a large franchise that, honestly, everybody that kind of loves. Um, I love it. But here recently, I just I've not liked it as much as I used to. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, or maybe it's just because of the new movies. And I don't mean that in the oh my god, why is there a woman in the main character slot? Um, it's mainly because it doesn't feel like it used to. I know that's like a weird thing to say, especially when we've got the Force Awakens, which really felt like a Star Wars film, but then we got the Last Jedi, and that didn't. I mean, I would still watch the Last Jedi, but I'm more reluctant to, like, even more so than the original trilogy, which, to be honest with you, it was okay. It was all right. I mean, it's not the best thing, but it certainly wasn't the worst. Now, but the reason I say this, especially with the Rise of Skywalker coming up in about 4 days, is because there's this idea, and this idea has been floating around for, geez, 2, 3 years now. That if you're a fan of something and you want it to do good, and you think that, oh, this thing didn't work, so let's try, making it. Let's say change it, or voice our opinion that this isn't good. And I think that the first hint that this was not going to be good was when they got rid of the extended universe. I mean, because I loved Young Jedi, I think it was. It followed Obi-Wan during his Padawan years, which I like those books. I only read the first one because that's the only one that I could ever find. But I enjoyed those books when I was a teenager, or was I? I might have been a preteen at that time, at the time of those releases. But I enjoyed them, and they flushed out my favorite character, Obi-Wan. Uh, I don't I don't know why I like Obi-Wan, but I do. Uh, Maybe it's just because he's snarky, but also that classic warrior ideal where he doesn't like to use guns, but he'll use them if needs be. And I don't know. I'm always a big fan of sword combat, so I guess that has something to do with it. However, with these new films, and I'll go into detail why I don't think these new films are very good. Every time. Every time I try to record. Alright. So, one of the things that I think the prequel trilogy does well is expand what the original trilogy had. A lot of people think that midichlorians are a stupid thing, but I think it's good because the way things work in the Star Wars universe is you can sense people's uh, connection to the Force, right? But you don't know how strong it is. You can tell that it's strong, or you can tell that it's weak, but you could tell that they have a Force connection. Introducing the midichlorians was a good way to measure someone's connection with the Force, because the midichlorians help you connect to the Force, right? And the higher the midichlorian count, the higher the connection to the Force, right? So that made sense to me. Having a scientific way of measuring someone's connection to the Force. But for everything that the prequel trilogy did right, they did, I believe, two or three things wrong. Like, Jar Jar Binks' character, as much as people hate the character, he played a role in it, and I don't think he should have. He was just one of those characters that was supposed to be, I guess, throwaway, but he ended up being a lot more integral to the story than originally thought, and I don't think that worked very well. Um, the dialogue, of course, was terrible, and sometimes the acting was very wonky. But for the most part, the prequel trilogies didn't destroy the fandom. If anything, it was just like, all right, we got prequel trilogies now. But I mean, the third one, what was it, Revenge of the Sith? That one was good. It did have a lot of cheesy dialogue, but for what it did wrong, excuse me, it did more things right, I think. Now, while it's not the greatest film of the whole series, it was the greatest of the prequel trilogies, and I think that is common conception in the Star Wars fandom. But these new movies, they don't click, and they don't click. I think mainly because the marketing. The Last Jedi, or not the Last Jedi, the Force Awakens was seemed to be a confusion as to who the new Jedi was going to be, and I mean that made sense. You don't want to reveal the best of what you have right then and there, but I think they chose wrong, and I'll tell you why. Rey was a good was I can't really say a good character because we we don't hear a lot about her, and we don't see too much about her. Like, a lot of people compare Rey to Luke, and that's a fair comparison because they had similar upbringings. Not really. Luke, you know, in the first film, Luke got his father's lightsaber, and then went back to the house, found the Jawas that sold them the droids, went back to his house, found that his aunt and uncle were killed by stormtroopers, and then left. And while on the Millennium Falcon, trained a little bit with a lightsaber, right? However, he doesn't use it throughout the rest of the film. He just has it, right? And I think that works to his advantage, right? Because Rey, she goes half the movie without a lightsaber. And when she first when Maz gives her the lightsaber, she's afraid of it. Like, she knows that it was used for evil. I guess she can sense Force echoes, like Cal Kestis from the new game Jedi Fallen Order. If you haven't played that, play it. It's great. I highly recommend it. I'll talk about that at some point. But she doesn't touch it. In fact, it goes to Finn, and Finn uses it in in a combat setting. And what I thought, I was like, this would be a great time to establish Finn as a weapons guy. You know, he had that training as a stormtrooper, so let him fight. Albeit, a little bit, give him a disadvantage, I guess. Because he didn't completely give in to his stormtrooper, I guess, training. I don't know how I would talk about that, but just have him struggle with this enemy, and have somebody save him, which they did with Poe Dameron. I think he blasted that one stormtrooper out, and have him just accept that he was a stormtrooper, and now he's going to save the universe along with Rey, right? And when it came to reveal who the Jedi was, because they had shown Rey to have like some Force abilities for seemingly no reason, they streamlined it too much, like when you'll have to forgive me, I haven't watched it in quite some time. Kylo goes to interrogate her, and all of a sudden she can reverse that. Like, even Luke, even Anakin, with all of his strength in the connection with the Force, he never really showed like that he was overpowered. Like in Attack of the Clones, he lost his arm. In Revenge of the Sith, he lost to Obi-Wan, his master. And the same thing with Luke Skywalker, with his connection to the Force. He's shown to be, and not only that, but he's told. It was mentioned several times that he was good with a blaster. He was a pretty decent pilot, and that all came to a head in the finale of the first film. Rey, we didn't get any of that. It was just, oh, she can pilot the Millennium Falcon now. Okay, how? Oh, she is a good fighter. How? Like, there's nothing that we can go back to and reinforce that idea, And we have that one scene where she fought those, I guess, stormtroopers, but really doesn't seem that doesn't really reinforce that she's a good fighter. It just means that she got lucky, or that she could stand up to someone, say Kylo Ren. Even if he was injured, he should still easily overpower her because he's been shown that he's an adept fighter, and we know he was trained by Luke. And it just, like I said, it just all felt streamlined. It didn't have any build up. It didn't have any payoff. It was just, here it is, here it is, here it is, here it is. Accept. It's like the terms of service. It's like, here it is, read it and accept it if you want to watch another. And we accepted it because, hey, it's a new Star Wars film, and it's not too bad. It has some flaws, yes, but it wasn't too bad. And then The Last Jedi comes, and we get to see Luke's return. Now, I'm all for Luke being a grumpy old man and being a harsh teacher. I think that him being a harsh teacher should be a thing. But him basically doing what he did with Rey and not really training her with the Force, I don't think that was a good idea. And that goes back to this idea that the fans are this group who just hates on everything. And I'm a big fan. And I'm a big fan of The Legend of Zelda. I'm a big fan of Star Wars. I'm a big fan of a lot of different nerdy things. I could show you my nerd shelf. You could see all that I'm nerdy for. And you might not recognize a couple of things, actually. That's awesome. But yeah, this idea that the fans are this evil group who's hell bent on just bashing everything is not the way you need to go. And between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, we've been getting increasingly worse vitriol from not just the directors and actors, but the mainstream media. And if there was some death threats to Rose's actress, that's not cool, and I don't agree with that myself. But to use that as a dropping off point for the fans, that's not a good idea, especially if you're in the media industry. And I blame comic book and the comic book resource, and there's a couple of others. I think the Mary Sue is one of them. I blame them for the venom that fans have been getting. Like, I understand that you want to make Rey the hero, but you don't have to have Rey be this all powerful hero to say, hey, this is going to be it. Just get over it. I mean, you could have had Finn and Rey both being trained as Jedi, and that would have been awesome. Not only would it have been awesome, it would have made sense because you got Finn, who is already a weapons, has been trained in weapons, and you got Rey, who's got a very high connection to the Force. Which, I mean, that would have been great. Like, but you chose to do Luke in this way that just never made sense. And also, what's the deal with Finn's character overcoming his fear of the First Order to go save Rey, only to, in the second film, turn around and become a coward. That was just no. That didn't make any sense. Like, to me, that was one of the biggest FUs to basically to basic writing. And from what I've heard, they're teaching the Last Jedi in schools as how to not write, as what not to write, you know. And I think that is very uh, is I think that's a very bad thing. Like, you're sitting here telling me that this film that I'm supposed to just adore all around isn't being taught as the epitome of writing. Instead, it's not. It's the exact opposite. It's this thing that you shouldn't write and you should never try to write it. But that's only coupled, again, by the media telling, us that we have to accept it, that if you don't, and this goes back with the Ghostbusters thing. Like, Ghostbusters fans wanted Ghostbusters 3, the original team back, doing things that Ghostbusters do, and they wanted, the original writers on that as well. But what they decided to do was stick 4 women in a new universe and completely ignore the original source material. And even going as far as to bring in the old cast as cameos, but not to have them as Ghostbusters. Maybe, finding themselves in an alternate dimension somehow. And maybe... And there's far more egregious offenses that movie has. But I can't say much about it because, I've not seen it. And I want to see it so I can give it a fair shake, but at the same time, I would rather just watch the new one that had a trailer released not too long ago, which I've already done a reaction to and a breakdown of. If you want to see it, I'll drop a link in the description below. But for all this talk about, fans and media trashing fans, where does Star Wars go from here? And why should we care? To be honest with you, I don't see The Rise of Skywalker doing very well. And it's because of all the negative press that the fans have been getting throughout the last couple of years, number one. Number two, I don't see it doing well because of some of the writing. If any of these rumors are to be believed, it sounds like they just gave up. They gave up in writing a good story that's going to be fun to watch, and that is ultimately Star Wars. Instead, they're wanting to continue the narrative that came from The Last Jedi, and they want to bring in old fans by bringing back certain characters and trying to get them to be, a bigger role. But if they do this in a way that seems, and it does seem to be shilling instead of genuine, like the Force Awakens, it all felt genuine. Like, they brought back Han Solo and Chewbacca and Leia in good faith. And that's why I think the scenes with them in it did so well and resonated with audiences so well, is because we're seeing them do what they do best, except for when Rey's around. Because apparently, when Rey is around, everyone becomes like less adept at what they used to do. Like, don't get me wrong. If we could see Rey actually do some of this stuff before we saw her do it, or do something to kind of hint that she could do this, that, or the other, nobody would have an issue with it. But instead, we got her being a scavenger, and then that translating to, oh, she can fix the Millennium Falcon, to her being able to pilot a speeder, to, oh, she can pilot the Millennium Falcon. And you could chalk that up to the Force, but at that time we had not seen any indication that she was Force sensitive. We didn't see that until Maz tried to give her the lightsaber, and at that point it was halfway through the movie, and we had already seen her do things that we didn't know she could do. And again, it just felt streamlined. Just hey, let's throw this together, throw it out there, and now we have a movie. And I think that between that feeling and the betrayal of characters that we've known and love in The Last Jedi, and the whole deal with Leia being able to survive out in space because Force. We've never seen that before. We shouldn't have seen that before, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, even in the vacuum of space, even Jedis have limitations. Like, Qui-Gon didn't come back after being stabbed through the heart because Force. Obi-Wan didn't come back, in the flesh after Darth Vader killed him, and Darth Vader didn't come back after, his corpse was burnt after he was cremated, because that's not how the Force works. Once you're dead, you're dead, and the Force does not do things for you. It's just never. That's just one of the rules. You manipulate the Force, but you're also bending to its will. It doesn't bend to you. That was always the idea, is that Sith Lords bend the Force to their will, but they have to bend the Force to their will. And Jedis are an extension of the Force. So that's always been the idea, and I think that The Last Jedi definitely just shit all over that, and that's why it's not, heralded as a good movie. And not only that, but it betrays the idea of the characters as well. And what I guess the main reason I'm making this video is because I've not talked about Star Wars very often. And I mean, I talked with it to my mother, who got me into Star Wars, and I'm trying to to work through what Star Wars is becoming, and I'm not sure I want to be on board with it. But we'll see with The Rise of Skywalker if it's any good, I'm going to go see it not on day one, so I'll probably end up hearing about the spoilers and stuff like that. I've avoided trailers of The Last Jedi because, or not The Last Jedi. Well, I did avoid spoilers to The Last Jedi, but I've also avoided spoilers for The Rise of Skywalker, despite YouTube trying to give me the trailers for Rise of Skywalker. I just don't pay attention. I look away. I don't listen to it because it works to my advantage when I don't. I go into a film with little to no expectations as to what it's going to be, and I enjoy it for the most part, unless I've got a stake in the fandom, like what was a movie I've seen recently that I was just like, eh. Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. That was a good one. Uh, I came out of it feeling like it wasn't, rightfully so, that it was a terrible movie and it didn't need to be made because it was not good. It wasn't good. Oh man, because it was basically the Lost. Was it? Is it called the Lost World? Jurassic Park 2? I don't know. The Lost World. It was basically the same plot, and I was just like, we've seen this before. Come on, give us something that's worthwhile. But you know, Hollywood has been doing this for a while now, and so has the mainstream media. Like if with the Sonic film, they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't cater to man babies and this, that, and the other," and you know, we're passionate people. The fans are passionate people because there's an established lore with Ghostbusters, with Star Wars, with video games, this, that, and the other. You injecting these ideas into them without any rhyme, reason, or respect for the original source material is not going to go over well with us, the fans, because there is an established idea and there's an established lore, and we know when you're being disrespectful, and we do pay attention. We're not just one of these people who just focus in on. We're not these people who just focus in on bashing franchises that we love because we want to see them do well. We want them to be this thing that is sacred to us. And when you come in and are like, "Oh, this needs more women. This needs more people of color. This needs more LGBTQ ideas. This needs more of this. This needs more of that." You're taking away from what we enjoy. And the sad thing is that's Hollywood right now. If you look at all these films that have these messages, they resonate well with critics because critics are in that same realm. They're in that bubble where they want this to have this implication, this to have that implication. They want this to do this. They want these and there and that. And instead of being, okay, we have a set of rules here. Let's follow this set of rules and let's make a new movie. Or let's remake it and throw out all the rules. And that doesn't work with fans. If you had made the Ghostbusters film with an all-female cast, but kept the rules of the franchise, or even brought back the old Ghostbusters to train the new ones and explain how everything works, that would have worked better. And it wouldn't be this idea that the fans are big man babies. The fans would have been like, this is a good way to do it. And you see that with the Ghostbusters Afterlife uh, trailer, I guess, because we don't have the movie. But you guys, let me know what you guys think about the Star Wars films right now, and where how they can uh, how they can redeem themselves. Uh, maybe with the Rise of Skywalker, but I doubt it. I doubt it because this was in the works before so much fan backlash, and it seems like right now, um, Star Wars, the films are in a bad place. Um, I haven't talked about The Mandalorian for several reasons because number one, I haven't watched it. I'm not getting Disney Plus. Disney owns far too much, and they are ever expanding. So I don't want to give them any of my money for one, because they're such a big corporation now that I feel like they're not catering to the people who make them the big corporation that they are. And not only that, but they're trying to push again agendas that have no need to be where they are, because and the best way to to see that is with their live action films. Is they didn't need to make these live action films. What they could have done is they could have remastered it, or well, I guess yeah, remastered the old animated films, because those are so beloved and they were just so good. You can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. And then not only that, but look at what they've done with the Little Mermaid so far. Um, they've changed so much of it that I don't know if it's going to be the same film. If it's going to be a decent film, uh, I'm going to reserve judgment for it whenever it comes out. And to be honest with you, I probably won't go see it. I do have a niece that will probably want to, so I may take her if her parents don't. But that's why I haven't talked about The Mandalorian, and that's why that's really the only reason why I haven't talked about The Mandalorian, is because I don't have Disney Plus, and I'm not necessarily willing to pirate it. I'm not willing to pirate anything these days because of laws. But let me know what you guys think. Again, how Star Wars can recover from this. If they don't recover, um, that I think that it as a franchise should just stick with video games, because they've done so well in the video game area, except for Battlefront. But that was another rant. That was a rant ago. And this one hasn't been a rant per se. This has just been my thoughts on Star Wars, and these are my thoughts and my thoughts alone. You don't have to agree with them, and you don't have to disagree with them. You just have to understand that these are my thoughts, and you have yours. So definitely let me know what you think. But until next time, you guys stay frosty.